Hey guys, this is Woodshop Junkies and today I'm going to be restoring a piece of woodworking history. Right guys, so if you follow my channel you would probably know that I recently did a full restoration on a vintage AGS 10 Watkin Burst Green cabinet saw. More recently I got my hands on an old Delta jointer and I hope to restore that in this video. Now the machine in question is quite old. I bought it from my retired neighbor and it used to belong to his father. So I figured this machine has to be at least about 60 years old. Despite its age, it's quite complete and not in too bad shape. So I'm looking forward to restoring this machine and using it in my shop because I don't have a jointer at this stage. Step 1 was taking the machine apart. This allowed me to analyze years worth of wear and tear. The top had a lot of rust, but it seemed mostly surfaced. There was one or two small pit marks, but nothing to be too concerned about. Stripping the machine down to its bare components is a critical aspect of my restoration process. It allows for each component to be individually assessed, cleaned and prepped for reassembly. Something that plays a big part in me deciding whether a machine is worth restoring or not is the presence of the original data and info plates. These add a great deal of value to these old machines, or at least for me they do. The large components I sent away to get sandblasted, but before I did, I closed up all the areas I didn't want damaged during the process. To protect any machined or threaded holes during the sandblasting process, I shoved old rags into them. With everything covered and protected, it was off to the sandblasters. About a day later I got them back from the sandblasters, at which point I needed to act quickly because now the raw cast iron can rust very easily. So once again I closed up all the machined areas or the areas I didn't want to get paint on so that I can cover it in a coat of automotive filler etch primer or 1K etch primer. I find that the filler etch primer works well with the cast iron. It also fills and somewhat smooths the otherwise rough surface. After giving the primer enough time to dry, I added the hammered top coat. I really like the hammered paint option because it seems to be more forgiving in the case of an amateur like myself. It also suits the cast iron nicely. With the top coat applied, I needed to give it a bit of time to dry, so I jumped on these small components. Like with my saw, I submerged them in thinners to lift any surface impurities and give me the ability to give it a good clean. With my drill and a wire brush, I was able to lift the original paint as well as about 60 plus years worth of gunk. With the smalls cleaned and the rest painted and prepped, I could get started on putting the jointer back together. I sprayed the smalls with a layer of penetrating oil to prevent corrosion before jumping in with putting the machine back together. On the machine surfaces I applied a small amount of grease. This helps with the assembly and also prevents corrosion. So when the machine needs to be restored again in another 60 years, it shouldn't be too hard to take it apart. With the machine body assembled, I tested the adjustment mechanisms before replacing the data plates. Next up is restoring the rusted cast iron top. I started by using cleaning benzene and a scraper to remove surface deposits. It also lifted some of the more prominent rust. I repeated this step before starting with the orbital sander. The orbital wasn't giving me the results I wanted fast enough, so I added some penetrating oil to help lift the rust. With the rust removed, I continued sanding with the orbital and a slightly higher grit paper. Before using a Scotch-Brite pad and penetrating oil to get into some of the low spots. I then finished off the top restoration with a quick polish. Right, so next up is the spindle. It was in bad shape but completely salvageable. I removed the knives before once again using thinners and a wire brush to clean up the components. Followed by the rust remover step. Now guys, the product I'm using, Evaporust, is a great non-toxic rust remover. I got to know it while I was doing my saw restoration. I'm not sponsored this item, I buy it myself and I have had some great results. If you guys would like to check out pricing and availability, you can check out my Amazon storefronts. The links will be down below in the description of this video. With the spindle cleaned up, I painted the last of the outstanding smalls before assembling the spindle. Now guys, it was my intention to replace the bearings but could only track down one of them locally. I ordered the other, but in the meantime I had to reuse the old one. During assembly, there was definitely a noise from the recycled bearing. I suspect it will be greatly amplified when the jointer is running. At this stage, the project was nearing completion. I assembled the fence and installed it back onto the machine. On a bit of a side note, recording these type of projects really help with the reassembly because you can reference your original video to see how the machine gets put back together. The final step is replacing the knives. I ordered a set, but in the meantime I would like to test the machine, so I sharpened up the old ones. Because I'm going to be replacing these knives, I didn't bother with making a proper sharpening jig, so please don't think that this is how I normally do it. Finally, I slapped together a very basic stand just for the purpose of testing the machine. The noise from the recycled or reused bearing is not that bad, but it is definitely noticeable. This should definitely be gone when I replace the bearing. Okay guys, so that's pretty much it for my jointer restoration. The machine is obviously not exactly ready to be used yet. It still needs a blade guard, which I'm going to have to manufacture because the old machine didn't come with one. And also I need to build a proper stand and install proper electricals, like a safety start switch and all of that. For now, however, the restoration part is complete. So guys, I'm really enjoying these restoration projects. I know there isn't a huge difference between the method I used or techniques I used with the jointer restoration when I compare it to the table saw. But I'm really enjoying these type of projects and I would like to do more of them if you guys want to see more of them. So let me know in the comments down below and I'll try and squeeze in restorations here and there as I go along. And with that comes the end of this project. I learned a lot and I had a lot of fun. On top of everything, I've got a new machine to use in my shop. If you guys want to see more videos like this or whatever else I get up to in my workshop and you aren't subscribed yet, you should do that now. And with that comes the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, thank you so much for watching. Till next time. Cheers.